It's a damn shame what the world's gotten to. For people like me, people like you. Wish I could just wake up and it not be true. But it is, oh it is, living in the new world with an whole soul.
Good morning, everyone. Lots going on as usual. Today is September 21st, 2023, and India is proper pissed. They're very, very angry. They've suspended visas and recalled ambassadors. Potential sabotage on Trudeau's plane. That was by Bill Blair. And I don't think I'm going to follow that story, actually, because it seems contrived. It's being led by the reporters and not by other people, as far as I can understand it. I don't think Bill Blair was the first person to float this. So talking about that. Yesterday was the Million March for Children, and it was a huge success. It looked like across the country, there were a ton of people who turned out to support their kids, and parents were very, very peaceful, and they were articulate, and they were excellent. It was a great march, and a ton of people turned out in Ottawa. I've got footage for you from all across the country, from BC to Newfoundland, and so that's very, very interesting. The counter-protesters were ineffective, and the people who are ideologically aligned with this madness showed their hand. And I'll show you a whole bunch of the politicians who came out misrepresenting what this protest was about. And it's wild. It's absolutely incredible. So Premier Higgs is impressive, and the rest of them are disappointing. It's very, very interesting. It's wild. Jagmeet Singh joins a protest against parents and erects a straw man to justify it. CPC had marching orders to not post about it or attend, which is pretty wild. Maxime Bernier did attend, and he spoke. So he's the only federal leader that I'm aware of that went to these protests and was active in promoting them, et cetera, et cetera. So that's interesting. Premiers were posting about the march. There's a stark difference between what Higgs said in New Brunswick and what's his name, Tim Houston in Nova Scotia. So very, very interesting. I'll show you that contrast, as well as Danielle Smith. Oh man, Danielle Smith. The UN is dead, according to, I don't know, one tweet where there isn't anybody, and it's supposed to be the big revitalizing the SDGs and the United Nations goals and all this other stuff. And there's crickets. There's nobody in the auditorium to hear any of the speeches. So I'll show you that. UK wrote to Rumble to get them to demonetize Russell Brand. I've got the response. I've got the letter to Rumble and the response. So I thought that was interesting and just worth sharing. Absolutely. And what else? The Italian island update, there's 18,000 migrants on there and more boats coming. So, and the United Nations and the UN, the EU, those people, they want to resettle these people from Lampedusa to the mainland, which I don't think that's going to work. That's not really a plan. That's like saying, you know what, we're going to build enough houses for these people. Sure. Pierre Poilievre, speaking of building enough houses, Pierre Poilievre proposes his 15-minute cities, which will build a bunch of houses to fix housing, right? This is the plan, 15-minute cities. Yay. And I mean, like, not really yay, not yay at all. It's more ridiculous than anything else. Also, today we have 75 tabs to get through. A usual show that is an hour long is 41 tabs. 40 tabs is usually what my show is, and 75 today, so buckle up. I mean, you know what? Watch. We're going to come in at like 101 or something like that. And yesterday I had 37 tabs and it was 106. Anyway, regardless, there's a lot to get to, so let's get to it. First, let's start with Maxime Bernier responding to Justin Trudeau, who says, let me make one thing very clear. This is Justin Trudeau misrepresenting and creating a straw man to attack these protesters instead of listening to their valid concerns. Okay. He says, let me make one thing very clear. They never make anything very clear when they say this. Transphobia, homophobia, and biphobia have no place in this country. We strongly condemn this hate and its manifestations, and we stand united in support of Alphabet Soup Canadians across the country. You are valid and you are valued. It's so pandering. It's such a non-statement. It's like saying thoughts and prayers, right? Like, sorry about that fire, thoughts and prayers. It seems empty and trite. And the rhetoric is ridiculous because this wasn't against trans people. There was no transphobia. Nobody is irrationally fearful of trans people. The fear is totally legitimate because they appear dressed in all black and they're very, very aggressive and violent, right? As well, biphobia and homophobia, none of that was actually at any of the protests. That never happened. These people have made it up. The counter-protesters are the crazy ones. Maxime Bernier says to Justin Trudeau, "You are the one inciting hate and intolerance towards anyone who doesn't agree with your woke fanaticism. There's a huge backlash coming in this country. Canadians want you out and their normal lives back." Yeah, people are done with this tyranny. Here's Jagmeet Singh protesting against parents, right? Pride, not prejudice, he says. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh leads counter protests attacking parental rights on Ottawa's Parliament Hill. So Jagmeet Singh shows up to attack parents, and he thinks everything's okay about that. David says Jagmeet Singh leads union protesters attacking parental rights on Ottawa's Parliament Hill. Are these protesters paid by the unions? Very interesting. Trish Wood says, never forget what Jagmeet Singh did today, which side he chose. He never stands with actual people, but with the unions who can get him elected. When trans ideology falls through malpractice suits from damaged children, remember this photo. Again, the whole thing is just crazy. Devin says, is Canada the only democratic country in the world where its politicians openly protest against its citizens? Where else does this happen? Can you imagine? Who would vote for this? Who would vote for this? He's hoping for people who don't have children, adults who don't have children. It's very, very interesting because there are a lot more adults who don't have children now than there were 60, 70, 80 years ago. Here is Pastor Hildebrand. He's confronting Jagmeet Singh, and he says, I asked Jagmeet Singh face-to-face in Ottawa this morning, why are you against the people? He's on the wrong side. And Hildebrand said to him, according to in the Canada Poly chat, I watched this and I couldn't hear it. And Instagram is not very good for rewatching videos and like zeroing in on the timestamp you want to listen to. Anyway, according to the Canada Poly chat, Hildebrand says, you don't cut your hair because your God commands it, and yet you're on board for mutilating children, paraphrased. Great point. How can you protest against your own constituents, parents and things like that? It's insane. It doesn't make, not that it doesn't make sense. I mean, if you're a terrible politician, I guess protesting against your constituents is in the realm of possible, right? And Jagmeet Singh qualifies as a terrible politician. But it doesn't seem likely to get reelected unless you're, I don't know, using it as a wedge. And they are. They definitely are. Angus says, Maxime Bernier at the Million Person March. There are only two sexes and common sense will prevail. So LifeSite News is reporting on Maxime Bernier and his out there speaking to things that people are out on the street protesting, right? This is very important stuff. Here's CBC News reporting on the Conservatives' marching orders. Conservative MPs told not to talk to the media. Post about parental rights protests. Thousands gathered across the country for competing protests over how to address gender identity, not the gender identity. Conservative MPs were told not to post online or talk to media about competing protests on Parliament Hill that saw protesters clash over how schools handle LGBTQ plus issues. That is not at all what this was about. Not even a little tiny bit. A child having an individual issue with their sexuality is not something that this protest touched on. What this protest touched on was bringing LGBTQ ideology into everything in the curriculum, and the people not wanting activist teachers indoctrinating their kids into this nonsense. Back to the article. The Canadian Press obtained a copy of the message sent to members of Pierre Poilievre's caucus, which warned them not to speak publicly about the issue and provided talking points that they could use to communicate with their constituents. It's common for opposition leaders' office to issue suggested talking points on prominent issues. It has done so on topics that Conservative MPs frequently speak to reporters about, such as bail reform and inflation. Poilievre's office has not provided a response to a request for comment. The memo about protests organized all over Canada says protesters have, quote, legitimate points to make about what it describes as parental rights. Thousands of people gathered in cities across the country for competing protests, yelling and chanting at each other about the way schools instruct sexuality and gender identity and how teachers refer to transgendered youth. This is inflammatory language meant to make this seem like something that it's not. And they're doing that on purpose. That's the point. Sarah says, it's bizarre watching Trudeau and his ministers complain about the state of affairs in Canada, inflation, housing, and affordability. They're acting as if someone else has been in government for the last 8 years. Somebody's asking, where's Pierre Poilievre, right? So Pierre Poilievre Sammy says, Maxime Bernier is the only political party supporting People's Party. Maxime Bernier is the only political party supporting the Million March for Children, with the PPC Bernier in Parliament to endorse the protest. Meanwhile, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh is backing the counter-protest against the Million Person March, organized by the unions. So Maxime Bernier is speaking out front of Parliament Hill, right? So that's what they're saying. He's not in Parliament Hill. Here is Powerhouse. It says, neither Pierre nor a single CPC MP showed up for the Leave Our Kids Alone rallies from coast to coast. Maxime Bernier and the PPC were out in force at every single rally from coast to coast. The PPC is the only party that opposes grooming and fights to protect children. Yeah, that's interesting. Rupa is talking about how, well, she says, correct me if I'm wrong, but I've never seen calls to condemn the House of Commons anti-Israel protests featuring anti-Semitic messages or recent anti-Hindu protests featuring anti-Hindu slogans. True North says NDP MP Randall Garrison accuses the Million March for Children of being anti-trans and calls the Trudeau government to join the NDP in condemning the protest. Liberal Minister Marcy Ian says absolutely and stresses the need to support trans and queer kids. I'm not going to play the video. I think we can all imagine the video. I'm just not interested in hearing it because, I mean, we know this government stands for their made-up ideology and not for the reality and the things that Canadians are concerned about. Here's the leader of the Christian Heritage Party. He's highlighting this as well. Maybe I'll play a short clip from it. But he says the NDP and the Liberals team up to condemn parents protesting against the government. They've chosen to paint this as a hate protest, ignoring the genuine concerns parents have in what is being taught to their children. Not once have there been calls in Parliament to condemn other protesters or other protests that are true hate rallies and that call for violence. Today's parents from different backgrounds gathered across the country for the love of their children. Clearly, the left is looking to destroy the traditional family and family values. The NDP and Liberals have clearly chosen to be on the wrong side of history. Vote them all out in the next election. So it's the same 141. I'm just not interested in hearing them talk about this because what they're doing is purposely constructing a false narrative in order to attack the parents under false pretenses. It's fake. They're purposely doing this. It's not like they don't understand. They do understand and they don't care. Their goal is to demonize the parents in the eyes of the public. That's it. Danielle Smith says the government of Alberta is aware of large planned protests and counter-protests happening across Canada today regarding issues that impact the lives and well-being of children. I ask that all protesters, regardless of what their position is on these delicate issues, exercise their right of free speech peacefully and to encourage their fellow Canadians to do the same. I found that to be a very weak response. I mean, she's not saying we stand with the LGBT blah, blah, blah community. She's not saying that. But at the same time, the only reason this is a sensitive issue is because communists are making it a sensitive issue. Men can't be women, and that's a fact. It's a biological fact, and there is no arguing with it. And people will want to argue and say, I feel like a woman. Great. That doesn't mean you have access to private female spaces. There are all sorts of different accommodations that can be made for people, men who feel like women. But it's never good enough because what they want is to terrorize women. They have absolutely, it's not that they feel fear and they have to be in a women's bathroom or anything like that. That has nothing to do with it. They want to terrorize women. And the way to gain access to female spaces is to claim falsely that they're fearful to be in a male washroom. So they need to be in a female space. Bullshit. Call them out and say, no, this is not sensitive. This is not sensitive. And you should tell the communists where to go. Like, this is not a sensitive topic. This is not something to pearl clutch over and say, oh, nobody thought of the children. Get real. It's not sensitive. And treating it as such gives credence to the communists who are trying to destroy the country, for crying out loud. Blaine Higgs, the Premier of Nova Scotia. No, he's the Premier of New Brunswick. He says parents want the role they play in their children's lives respected within the school system. I agree, and we can do that while still providing a safe and welcoming environment for all students. This is not hard. This is not difficult. It's not controversial, right? Nobody's fallen over of shock or anything else like that from seeing these statements, right? Look at this. Blaine Higgs is talking to parents, talking to kids. He's out there at the marches, right? Seems like a Canadian thing to do. Politicians listening to their constituents and not misrepresenting what they're arguing for, right? It's such a strange thing. Tim Houston, on the other hand, the Premier of Nova Scotia, this time I got it right. He says, no matter who you are, who you love, or how you identify, Nova Scotians deserve to live without fear and intimidation. Our government supports the alphabet soup community and growing safe and inclusive communities across our province. Troy says, then why are unions sending out paid communists, self-admitted communists, to threaten and intimidate parents? You support this disgusting behavior. Yeah, that's terrible. And somebody else is responding to Tim Houston again. And he says, why is Why is only one side about this topic a concern to you? You weren't elected premier solely to align with those who share your views. It's time for new leadership in Nova Scotia, and I don't mean from the NDP or Liberals. It's time for Nova Scotians to step up and remove you and your entire team from office. I feel like that about every single institution in this country at this point in time, from the federal government all the way down to school boards. Everyone. Fire the directors of education, fire the trustees, fire the mayors, the councillors, the bureaucrats, every bureaucrat in the freaking country, fire them. Shut down the entire government. Shut it down, and then start over with paper ballots and one-day voting. You don't make it, sorry about your luck. We're not doing mail-in ballots. We're not doing anything else like that. We've got mail-in ballots. We've got a count room that's got a live-streamed count. We've got controlled access and security, all sorts of stuff that we don't have now. And people say, oh, the election's secure. It's not secure. It's not secure. Nobody can say that with a straight face. And if you do try and tell me that with a straight face, it underlines very clearly how little you've been paying attention. All these people, all these pundits, the official narrative across the mainstream media and even the secondary media, they talk about how Canada has, paper ballots and they ignore the Dominion machines, and they ignore the rest of the mail-in ballots, the other ways preventing people from advertising, demonizing people, using government money to demonize people, funding NGOs to demonize people, all of the ways that our elections are not legit. And if you add it all up, it adds up to a crooked, stolen, faulty election. And I do not believe our results, period. Even the immigration we have impacts our elections. And that is election interference. And so anybody who says that is absolutely out of touch. Anybody who says, oh, there's no interference, Elections Canada hand counts those and there's no Dominion and you're just a crackpot. People can call names all they want, but that's the modus operandi. That is the play of the communists. Demonize people, call names, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Somebody said the other day, you're touching your nose too much. I'm sorry, it's itchy and I don't know why. I think that's like just the time of year. Maybe there's like hay in the air or something like that, but it's itchy as all get out. I'm trying desperately. Okay, Andy, who's also an MP, he says, you may notice some far-right bozos marching in the streets today under the ruse of standing up for Canada's kids. Don't fall for it. This is what bigots do. They mask their hatred under the cover of fake causes because they know we won't accept it for what it really is, hate. These people are ideologues, cracked ideologues. Here is who he's accusing of hate. Here.
All right. I mean, number one is, a little one right here. This is who we're fighting for. This is the future that we're fighting for. We're not here for hate. I don't know why there's a lot of talk about hate. We respect everybody, but our children is like there's a line that's drawn in our children. I think ideologies should be taught at home, what the parents want, and the way that they're forcing this. It's not right. It's not like we had a roundtable discussion where they're like, hey, like, what do we want in our education system? No, this has been infiltrated without anybody's consent. And now when, for our own children, we want to speak out, we're creating hate, we're creating division. I don't think so. I don't think we're creating division. Look around. Look how many skin colors, religions, look how many people are united. Why? Because we have one thing in common, and that's our children. Nobody will ever back down from their children. Nobody, ever. So I just want it to be known, we're not going to go anywhere. My kid is a year old. She has her whole life. I have another daughter. I'm not backing down. I'm young. I'll fight for the rest of my life. And this is not about respect or teaching hate. I teach my children respect, to love everybody, but to also stand up for what you believe in. As long as what you believe in is not hurting anybody else.
Right? I mean, that guy sounds reasonable. Is this the hate that they're talking about from the march? Right? How dare he protect his children? Josh Alexander says, it's okay, Pierre Poilievre, we'll do it ourselves. And this is a huge march. This is Ottawa. So this is yesterday.
People on Twitter and X are gonna come out and they're gonna say, everybody back up, guard the sun. People on Twitter.
So it's a lot of people, right? There's a lot of people talking about it. Josh Alexander, he said that already. Chris says, when elected officials do not stand up for parents' rights and remain silent, it's an endorsement of the policies that would see children indoctrinated, sexualized, mutilated, and sterilized by the state. They all need to be removed from office. They all do. Here's Coquitlam. Did I get that right? Close. And Alan says 4 times more pro-parent activists than trans activists. They have no children. They have no brown people. Most of them are hiding their faces while we proudly show ours. So people are proud to be a part of the group, and there's a lot of people there. You know, there's hundreds at least in Coquitlam. And Linda says, my first video showing the intersection does not do justice to the number of people involved in the Edmonton March. This video represents 1/3 of the parade. Watch, listen, read the signs. People really get it. There's no putting this wine back into the bottle. Today was a turning point. Speech and opinions on this issue can be suppressed no longer. There's no use painting this as hate. CTV, Global, CBC, all of these people, many of them parents, love their children and want desperately to keep harmful ideologies out of schools. Thank you, the citizens of Edmonton, for this. So there's a lot of people.
My kids, my choice!
My kids, my choice!
Cameras on the teachers!
There you go. So people are enthusiastic, and there's a lot of enthusiastic support. Here's Durham region, and the parents outnumber the counter protest by 15-1. The parents can't fit on one side of the street, so they're spilling over.
There has been a growing concern regarding school trustees abusing their power and neglecting parental.
That's a huge amount. Like, that's a lot of people out front of that. I guess, is this a school or is this I don't know if this is administration, but it looks like a school, and it looks like it's got a playground. So there's parents definitely protesting out there. Ezra says Mennonites marching with Muslims in common cause against gender extremism in schools. That's quite a sight. So here we go. Lots of people. And this is, I don't know where this is. Kitchener, Waterloo, maybe? So people want the powers that be to leave their kids alone. And this is another one. About twice as many people showed up in Ottawa for the Million March for Children than showed up a month ago for the Pride Parade. The parade was on a weekend during summer break, whereas today is the middle of a work day during school. These kids are kept home from school. So yeah, parents have taken their kids out of school in order to attend the march. Here's a turnout in St. John's, New Brunswick. Lots of people here too.
Enough is enough!
Enough is enough!
Enough is enough!
Enough is enough!
Enough is enough! Let's get speaking! Let's get speaking! Let's get speaking! Let's get speaking!
Let kids be kids, indeed. Fun Acceptable says, perfect day for the march, Million March for Kids in Barrie. It was a beautiful, peaceful event with the message loud and clear to let kids be kids. Despite what counter-protesters think, this march is about allowing kids to grow up without being taught to feel like they were born in the wrong body, and to protect them from being persuaded to undergo dangerous, irreversible, and untested medical treatments. It's not medical treatments, it's mutilation. It's absolutely mutilation. If you tell somebody, I'm going to cut your hand. I'm sorry, it's so itchy. I'm going to cut your hand off and I'm going to give you a bionic hand, right? And they say, great, a bionic hand? I would love to have a bionic hand. Maybe there'll be a lighter in the thumb, like Inspector Gadget, Go-Go Gadget arms or something like that, right? Go-Go Gadget fingers. I don't know, whatever it is. And then so you wake up and then you've got a hook, right? And then like you say to the doctor, what happened to the bionic hand, man? Like, we was playing with bionic hand and I'm pretty sure you told me that I was going to have a bionic hand and now I've got a hook. And they say, oh, well, sorry. Does that doctor not have a responsibility to, I don't know, communicate effectively what is actually going to be put on your body, if it will function, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And two, doesn't that doctor have a responsibility to not lie to you? Like, if you cut off my penis, I'm going to be a woman, right? And the doctor says, yep. Isn't that complicit? Aren't you lying to somebody? Isn't that bad? Aren't you causing harm? Aren't you violating your oath? Right? Am I wrong about that? I don't think so, right? So why can a doctor mutilate somebody, lie to somebody into the mutilation, and then be celebrated as somebody who's, on the side of LGBT, LMNOP, alphabet soup communities, right? It just doesn't make sense to me. It's not medical treatments, and it's not compassionate to do that to somebody. It's mutilating somebody. Let's cut off your healthy breasts to make you a man. That's not helpful, actually. Thanks very much. Not very helpful. The Canadian Independent says protesters at the Million March for Children are getting lots of honks and support from vehicles passing by in Toronto. Strategically, the PPC has done a great job, I have to say, of getting their message out. They've got "Leave Our Kids Alone" printed, and on the other side it's a PPC sign. And so the messaging gets out, and it's all PPC colors. Great job. Good job for marketing, guys. Talk about seizing the opportunity. Well done. Cosman says, heavy police presence. Sorry about the nose. Heavy police presence downtown Ottawa. Why is the Ottawa police treating parents and kids standing up for their rights like a threat? It is a threat. Listen, when your government is illegitimate, trying to start a war with India, and they know they work for the United Nations and the WEF and the WHO and not for you, when your citizens show up, this is what they do to protect themselves. Remember when Joe Biden took office? They're not working for us, so they fear us because we might wake up and go, like say 1,000 parents went and said to the school board, "You're all fired. We're all done. You're done because we're not going to do this anymore. And you're fired and you're fired and you're fired," and took control of the school board. What would Doug Ford do? Like, don't come back. No, you're fired. You don't come back here. You're not working here. We're taking over the school board. We're taking over the IT. We're taking over the whole thing. Parents are. You know what I mean? All the parents who are all done with their kids being abused at school, those who are the people who are going to show up and take it over and stop it, right? What would they do? How is it done now? The school board hires its own, so the communists hire the ideologues and the communists hire their own. Where are the parents involved in this? I think that it's time to fire the school boards, and it's time to fire the whole friggin' government, top to bottom. Top to bottom, you're fired. And if you don't get out, that's going to be a big problem. But see these cops? They don't work for us. They work for them. Here's what Ottawa looked like. A lot of police. Here is Surrey, BC. Lots of people. I can't make this one big. I'm sorry. So people are upset and they're turning out in droves. Here's the Antifa. And Paul says, at the Million March for Children, the lines have been drawn. On one side are parents protecting their kids, and on the other are counter-protesters. They're Antifa and radical gender activists. Which side are you on? And so these Antifa guys are showing up with, and gals are showing up with black umbrellas, and they're all in black and they're clad in balaclavas. Looks totally normal. Everything's fine. This is absolutely normal. This person is trying to start a fight talking about how biology doesn't exist to the parents who understand what biology is. It looks like she might be a teacher. She might be too young to have kids in this day and age. So she may not understand biological reality, like what happens when people get together and don't have birth control and condoms, babies happen, right? So this person might not understand this. But here we go. She's talking about how biology doesn't actually exist here.
So, biological sex is not either male or female.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
No, that's fine. I don't need anyone getting all riled up. So go back to your side.
But I'm literally just trying to
Literally
tell
just go-
facts.
literally
Biological
just go back to your
facts
side.
that do not support.
Biological
Good,
facts
fine.
are there one boy and one girl, male and
Okay.
female.
not
What
a
you
fact.
believe is a
Go back.
You're
delusion.
incorrect.
So she was just trying to rile people up, and I just wanted to show you how bonkers these people are. Ottawa police say 2 arrests have been made for inciting hatred today at demonstrations by displaying hateful material. Another arrest was made for causing a disturbance. Hate or bias-motivated crimes will be fully investigated. So they just say, oh, it's hateful. Ottawa teenagers stomp on a pride flag, ending an arrest. Why can they bend the Canadian flag, but we can't touch theirs? Because the rainbow flag is a communist flag, and the communists really don't like it when you stand on their flag and disrespect it. And Canadians, it's hateful if you say anything when they disrespect our flag, right? So it's video, just people stepping on the flag, and then they get arrested. Here's a violent arrest. Kean says after an officer guarding Trudeau's office tries to slap a phone out of a senior woman's hand, he grabs her by the neck and slams her against a car. Multiple arrests of anti-grooming activists follows. Violence and anger is growing in Ottawa. Here we go. So tensions are high, right? Lots of things going on, and somebody else was arrested. Joe Warmington says, here's the accused in the arrest at the Million March for Kids protest. This was in Toronto. I saw the weapon and the arrest. Seems like a big story considering the Queen's Park lawn was loaded with families. So the person is that person. She was arrested for, I think it's a she or a he. Maybe it's a they. And what the police say, Laura says, in regards to the demonstration today, I can confirm there was one arrest. Julia Stevenson, 47 of Toronto, was charged with possession of a weapon, carrying a weapon while attending a public meeting. Court info to be determined. I don't have any further details on what the weapon was. The case is still being processed. So here she is holding it looks like a collapsible baton, and arrest. So there you go. I don't know. I'm glad that nobody got hurt, and I'm glad that so far the arrests were minimal. There wasn't any kind of anything happened that was untoward. There was no big attack or anything like that. I'm glad. And I hope that the seed planted will, I don't know, yield results, but I don't know what is next. Like, you pull your kids or you demand Doug Ford change the policy. But I mean, what guarantee is there going to be for a changed policy of fixing this problem when the problem is the people in the positions of power anyway? I mean, unless he fired everybody, but he's not going to destroy his own education system. So I don't know if this protest is going to change hearts and minds. The government is doing everything it can to ignore it. And there's no indication that they're going to say, okay, guys, we were wrong about that whole cutting off penises, turning men into women thing. You were right. We were wrong. Sorry about that. They're not going to do that, right? There's so much money wrapped up in this at this point in time. That's momentum. And that momentum is going to carry this through, well, at least this India crisis. So, I mean, maybe that's a clumsy transition, but I'll keep you apprised of what the results of this protests are. At this point in time, it's indicating that it seems like parents are in the majority. It seems like ideology is wanted to be kicked out of schools. And it seems like the unions are as corrupt as the government, and they probably should be abolished along with the government. That's my conclusion from yesterday's march. And I'll let you know. Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful